when the narcissist gets replaced. Think about that for a minute. Everyone, if you like the content, please like, subscribe, and share. So the narcissist, they inevitably do get replaced. Usually people think that they were replaced by the narcissist. That is really not true, bigger picture. Now, if the relationship ended recently, then you're probably thinking what I just shared, that you were replaced, maybe even by the new supply, or by a new country, or by a new time zone or something. You weren't replaced. What happened there was the narcissist finally peeled the mask off. They showed you who they really were, and they thought that they were doing damage to you. They thought that they were twisting the knife in you deeper and deeper. And they probably did that, because that's what happens with these people. You were not taught this in school. You were not educated on the narcissistic abusive cycle, so you couldn't wrap your head around the fact, and maybe you still can't, that they never loved you. They never cared about you. They just looked at you as an opportunity, and they wanted you thinking that you were being replaced. This is all by design. It is the perfect abusive cycle. It was created by a dark energy source. I'm not going to get into that in the video, but it's stood the test of time. Eventually, this will be eradicated from the planet. Not in my lifetime, but hopefully in yours. Until then, we need to continue to become awakened and aware, educated and empowered. And we need to realize that we weren't replaced. We replaced the narcissist. And I will jump into that and tell you exactly how it happens, when it happens, why it happens, and that it has to happen. You see, way back when you were in the abusive cycle with the person, you didn't know what gaslighting was, you didn't know what stonewalling was, you didn't know what triangulation was, you didn't know what mirroring was, you didn't know what financial abuse was, and parental alienation and withholding of intimacy and all these things. But now you're learning them, and now you're coupling your real life experiences with the definitions in the glossary on the narcissistic abusive cycle, and that equals wisdom. Having said all those things, the narcissist never wanted you to acquire this wisdom. They did not want you to see behind the mask. They did not want you to heal, and they did not want you to ascend, to elevate, and to break the four ties from them, which include the emotional, the financial, the physical, and the spiritual tie. They wanted you tethered to them as long as you would stay tethered to them, which is why these people, the toxic people, they drag out the divorce, they drag out the custody, they insert therapists or counselors or the law, whatever they can do to drag things out more and more and more, because they're trying to play the long game and bleed you out. That is what they do in a nutshell. Again, I can create a whole series on that, and I can certainly, when I'm lecturing fully around the globe, and I have not begun yet, but I'm looking forward to doing it when the time is right, then I can touch on these, and I will address any questions that the audience will have in real time. Again, the energy flows through me. This isn't a script, this isn't AI, this is a real human being, me, who went through the cycle and made it out in one piece, and I healed perfectly and properly. Am I 100% healed? No, nobody ever will be. I'm 99.99% healed, and my hope is that that's where you are, you will be one day. But what you may not understand yet, and I understand fully, or maybe you're understanding it, is that the narcissist wanted you to think that you were replaced. They wanted you to experience FOMO, fear of missing out. They didn't want you to break the trauma bond. They wanted you blaming yourself. They wanted you thinking that you could have stayed in it longer, you should have, and that it was your fault. And if only you held your breath one more time, if only you would walk around on eggshells another 2 or 3 years, if only you would continue to get credit cards put in your name even though they were blowing through your credit because the credit cards were under your name, not their name. If only you would tolerate their abuse, their toxicity, if only you would ignore the red flags, if only you would not trust your instincts and intuition, and on and on and on. However, what happened is you figured something out that very few people will ever figure out. You found something which is what I call a needle in a haystack, which is understanding how humanity works, how toxicity works, how narcissism and other behaviors work, how empathy works, and it does exist, and how you are a special type of person. You see, you weren't replaced. The narcissist thought that they finished you off. They probably thought that you wouldn't exist. If you can read between those lines, that's what the cycle that I was in, the dark energy, didn't think I would exist, but I did, and here I am. And now I'm in the beautiful Carolina woods creating a video for you to pay it forward. Now, when the narcissist is replaced, this will be by you, and I will explain to you how they will be replaced. First of all, let's say that the relationship ended quite a while ago and you're healing or you've healed. So I'm going to fast forward all of the healing that has to go through. That is a very serious topic. It's a very serious concern, and I address that in almost every video I create, but today I'm not going to. So now time has gone by. You understand what the narcissist did. You cut the tethers, or you're cutting them. You realize they never loved you. You realize they never cared about you. You realize that you were a fuel source, and you realize that it was one big charade, one big house of cards, one big house built upon quicksand that was going to crumble and fall apart eventually, because that's what happened. And each and every one of these narcissistic relationships have an expiration date, and they all fall apart. Yours was no different. So when you wrap your head around those things, and again, it takes a while to figure that out, but when you do, then you realize you have time. Not only do you have time, but you have energy. And that's what the narcissists try to steal from you. Not those two things, but they're the two of the main things. You also probably or possibly have either rebuilt your bankroll, your money, or you're working on doing it. Another thing is you most likely have clarity, or you're getting clarity. So those are the 4 keys for this video. As you are healing, you realize that that relationship was actually worse than you thought it was. It wasn't what they wanted you thinking it was. It wasn't what you thought it was. It was worse. It was life-threatening. It was taxing. It was debilitating. It was essentially the relationship from hell, put in a nutshell. But you didn't know it because you were most likely caught up in the trauma bond, and you were doing things and working for your abuser. Okay. Now, when that all goes away via discard, or maybe you removed yourself and you had an escape plan, you created it, you developed it and executed it. When you get away from these people, then things naturally slow down for you. This is where you are in a place called cocoon of boundaries. I coined that phrase 4 years ago. I've created videos on it. It's essentially where you're in a place, a safer place, and you're healing. Okay. And when you do that, you realize that eventually you're going to have to go no contact with this person. Eventually you're going to have to block them, delete them, and remove them and all flying monkeys who are 1, 2, 3, maybe even up to 6 steps away from the narcissist. Maybe you've done that. If you haven't, you should, and you will. Now, having said those things, then you realize you do have time. And now you've probably learned all the definitions. You've had all of the answers, or most of the answers to the questions that you had answered. You've given yourself closure. You've practiced radical acceptance. You realize that that person will never change. They only get worse over time. Yes, they deteriorate. And that they're most likely doing the same thing to another person right now. Now, having said all these things, when you wrap your head around them, and there are a lot of things I just discussed but barely touched on, because by now you probably have seen thousands of the videos I've created, and if you haven't, you should watch them, because each and every one of them is chock full of real life experience, of wisdom, and of paying it forward. When you realize that actually you weren't replaced at all. You may still think that you were replaced. You weren't. What happened with you is that relationship ended when it was supposed to. Most likely not when you wanted it to end, but it was going to end one way or the other. So whenever it ended, that's when it ended. You can't change that. What did that do for you? Well, it hurt. It stung. It probably tested you to your core, and you probably questioned yourself and what is the life on this planet all about, and maybe you even experienced the dark night of the soul like I did. But then as the dust settles, the smoke lifts, and the clarity appears, you realize that you weren't replaced. What they did, i.e. the narcissist, is they either A, moved on and didn't want you to know who the new supply was, or B, they went off to a new source of supply trying to get the best from you, meaning have you experience FOMO and blame yourself and maybe even off yourself. Yes, I do mean that. And they're trying to get the best from the new supply, saying, see, I left that person for you, and they're so toxic. I can't believe that, but I'm with you now. This is how the narcissist leapfrogs from one person to the next. Now, when you wrap your head around that the narcissist didn't replace you, that's what they wanted you to think. What happened was you actually were removed from a life-threatening relationship. Now, again, I'm slowing my words down intentionally and deliberately, because I've already touched on some very, very heavy topics in the last minute and a half specifically. And with reference to what I said a moment ago, that was my January 6, 2021, but I made it, and I'm here, and you're here. So let's don't talk about that any longer. But what happens is you realize that the narcissist wanted you thinking you were replaced. What happens here is you replace them with your own time, your own energy, your own purpose, your own new relationships or rebuilding fractured relationships, your own new patterns or habits, Perhaps by now you have a new phone number, or perhaps by now you have a new email, or perhaps by now you've relocated, or perhaps by now you have gotten closer with some people that you just met, or gotten closer with people that perhaps you weren't allowed to communicate with in the past because the narcissist was afraid that you would get support and maybe you would figure it out earlier, which again is a whole different video. But what you realize is you weren't replaced. You replaced all that toxicity, all of the waiting around for the narcissist, all the texting games of the narcissist, all of the financial games of the narcissist, all the parental alienation games of the narcissist, all of the dragging out the divorce proceedings of the narcissist, all of the withholding intimacy of the narcissist, all of the financial abuse. You've removed yourself, or it was removed for you. All those things go away like that. Now again, you're different than most people. Most people sincerely won't figure out what narcissism is. You may think that a lot of people know it now. Well, yeah, more know it now than yesterday, and more knew it yesterday than they did the day before, but it doesn't mean that everyone gets the light bulb moment like you've had. It doesn't mean that everybody breaks the 4 ties. It doesn't mean that everybody heals and heals properly. You see, each and every one of us were holding on to something in that relationship. We were trying to fix an unfixable relationship, which we couldn't do because the narcissist didn't want that. On top of that, the narcissist is not healthy. They're not stable, they're not committed, they're not kind, and they're not transparent. So you can't be in a relationship with someone who's trying to destroy your life and essentially take everything from you. You didn't know that back then, now you know it. So now you understand that all of your energy and your time and your purpose, it is either being revealed to you now, or it has been revealed once you've healed. And when I say that, what I mean is this. Post-relationship, you will figure this out, especially when you've healed, that you are now in or entering the third version of you. What is the third version of you? It's the strongest, most galvanized version of you known to humankind. There are 3 versions of you. The first version of you is who you were before you met the narcissist. Most likely a naive, vulnerable, empathetic, kind, loving, open book kind of person. That's who I was. The second version of you is who you were when you were being abused, peppered with abuse, day in and day out. You couldn't get your bearings because you were always holding your breath. You were being disrespected. You weren't being treated properly. You were being triangulated. You had things thrown at you physically. Your right ear was being screamed at on the freeway going 100 miles an hour. You were being triangulated, and yet you're expected to do everything and more for the narcissist and whomever was living in the house, which meant cook, clean, pay tuition, plan for vacations, be available, do everything you could do, but put your life on hold. The third version of you is the main version of you that I'm referring to for this part of the video. That is when you've healed. That's where I am. That's my hope is either you are there or you will be there. And this is when you have let all of the breadcrumbs go. It's when you let all the things you were holding on to go. You realize that the narcissist wanted you thinking that you were replaced. You weren't replaced. And you realize that you need to replace them with things that you want to do in the future. Now, I know it's not that easy, but stay with me. Post-relationship, you have a huge learning curve to process, to understand, and to wrap your head around because you didn't know what narcissism was. I will say one thing. Let's say you've already learned the definitions. You understand what narcissism is, toxicity, and all that. Well, that's a very, very daunting and challenging time to go through. But when you do it, then you realize you weren't replaced. You now have a superpower. And with your superpower comes great responsibility, because with great power comes great responsibility. You have something that most people can't wrap their head around. You have something that the narcissist can't believe that you made it through to acquire. You have something you didn't even know existed. So you replaced the old you and the toxic relationship that you were in with the parasitical creature, the narcissist. You replaced it with the third version of you. Yes, the third version of you. Now, many of you right now maybe scratch your head saying, what is Andrew talking about? He is speaking a different language. I don't understand this. What you need to do is you need to play this video and play it a few times. And if you don't understand it right now, please bookmark it, because in the future, if you continue to heal and you see the light at the end of the tunnel, this will make complete sense to you. Now, for those of you who know exactly what I'm talking about, drop comments on the video and let other people know your experience. If it's similar to what I'm sharing, if it's more powerful to what I'm sharing, or if it's identical. Once you enter the third version of you, you will not see the world the way you saw it. Certain things that were important to you no longer will matter to you. certain beliefs, whether they were religious or whether they were taught to you in a school or university, they may not apply any longer. You will see the mask of the narcissist everywhere. You will see it on a bus, you will see it on a plane, you will see it at work, and you will see it in your building. And you will have the advantage over each and every said narcissist. And you may say, what's that advantage? Well, the advantage is the wisdom. See, you've gone to hell and back. You paid a big price to get this wisdom. You cannot acquire this wisdom for $10 billion. You can't acquire it for $1 trillion. Either you went through this cycle and you can finish my sentence like that, just the way I can finish yours, and believe me, I can finish yours, or you didn't. So, having said this, let's say you're in a room with 100 people and everybody's telling you that they were in the cycle and they were abused and all these things. Maybe they all were. I can't say that they weren't. But you will be able to tell if you talked with each and every one of those people for maybe a minute and a half, if they have been in the cycle of abuse. You will know it, because you can't fake this. This is not something you can get from going to an Ivy League school. It's not something you can get by going to the biggest business school on the planet. It's not something you can get from taking a course. You either lived it, you made it out, you healed, and here you are, or you didn't. That's simple. So any way you look at it, you know who you are. You know what you've been through, and you know what you had to do to get to where you are right now in life, as do I. The narcissist didn't replace you with anybody. What they really did, and please play this part of the video and play it many, many times. This is at the 16-minute and 43-second mark. They thought that they extinguished you. They thought that they finished you off. They didn't think you would exist. They didn't think you would make it. They didn't think you would ever heal. They didn't think you would see behind the mask, and they thought they took everything from you that they possibly could, which is why they left you as like a sheet of paper crumbled up on the freeway and thrown away, never ever to be heard from again. That's what they thought, because this is what they had done to other people before they met you, and quite possibly it's what they're doing with other people right now. So the narcissist didn't replace you. What they did was they thought that they finished you out. They thought they gave you the knockout punch of a lifetime. It's not what happened. What happened is you picked yourself up by the bootstraps. You dusted yourself off. You rose through the ashes like a phoenix, and you put yourself back together, just like I did. And when you do that, and it will take time, it will take a lot of time, but in your time, when you do that, you realize that this was the biggest test of your life. It was the test of a lifetime that very few people will ever go through, very few people will ever understand, and very few people will ever make it to the mountaintop, the pinnacle of indifference. Pause right there. I've said that recently in many videos. I am here to support you. If I made it, you can make it. You will make it. You need to believe in yourself the way I believe in you. So don't think that you're not going to make it. There's a reason you made it to the 18.5-minute mark in the video. It's because you're trying to get your cup full. You want to get the daily dose of wisdom. You want to understand it wasn't just you. You were targeted, and that an individual, in this case me, made it out of the cycle. And I am about as clear as any person on this planet will ever be. And yes, I do mean that. Will ever be. Go back in time when I was in the cycle, in the loop of abuse, on that circus, that carnival of destruction. Did I know clarity? I didn't even know what clarity was. Heck, I could barely even get out of bed without even knowing how many endless to-do lists I would have to accomplish that day. Guess what? It all goes away. Not the day of the discard, not the day you remove yourself. It goes away over time when you realize that the narcissist wanted you thinking that you were replaced. What actually happened is you replaced them. And that's the best trade of a lifetime. Replacing the toxicity with the abundance, replacing the toxicity with growth, replacing the toxicity with calmness, serenity, peace, togetherness, abundance, which is why you continue to elevate each and every day, and they continue to deteriorate in that low vibrational quagmire state. They can't change, they won't change, it's never going to happen. It hasn't happened in the history of humanity, it's not going to miraculously happen now. So understand something. When the narcissist is replaced, or when you replace the narcissist, it's with yourself. You see, everything you've ever wanted has been within you. Always, but you are looking externally for someone to complete you, or your yin to your yang, or your soulmate, or to have the white picket fence and live the Walt Disney ending of a movie. Well, now we realize that not everything is how it appears to be on the planet. And Disney movies, they are movies. Not saying that there can't be a romantic couple that don't have a great relationship. I'm sure there are many. Then again, there are way more toxic relationships on the planet, most of which you will never hear about. Why do you think, before I close the video, why do you think the divorce rate in almost every country is over 50% and climbing? Why do you think the marriage rate is dwindling, decreasing? That's right. It's not only because of what happened 5 years ago during the COVIDians time. It's because people are understanding that they don't need another person like they were taught when they were younger. I am not saying that love doesn't exist. I am not saying you can't fall in love again. I am not saying you shouldn't get remarried. I'm saying make sure you know who you are, what you want, and what you don't want. And make sure whomever you are getting involved with, if you are, and many of you aren't right now, but if you are, make sure that that person knows who they are and what they want. And above all, that they are not, and I repeat, not wearing a mask. Understand what I'm sharing with you. There are so many layers upon layers to discuss. I'm going to close the video, but I want to let you know, when the narcissist gets replaced, they thought they replaced you. They didn't. They could never replace you in a million years. You are what I call a beautiful, bright, shining light. You shine higher than the sun, the moon, and the stars, and the narcissists knew that, but they try to extinguish it. They try to replace it, but you're irreplaceable. What actually happened is you replaced all the toxicity and all of the drama and the manipulation, the chaos and abuse with yourself. This could be the best video I've ever created. I am not saying it is or it isn't, but the abundance is flowing through me, the positive energy is flowing through me, and this is what clarity does. Clarity, once it arrives, it will stay within you forever. You need to understand you are stronger than you know. Don't give up. Don't ever give up. Believe in yourself the way I believe in you, and understand the narcissist didn't replace you. You replaced the narcissist. So everyone, that's the video. I hope you liked it. I loved doing it. I loved doing this video. From the beautiful Carolinas, this is Andrew. Namaste. Have a great afternoon, evening, or morning. No matter where you are on the planet, you are not alone. I love you all, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. And I will share this. Every video I create, I enjoy them more and more and more. No matter where I am, in the jungle, in the rainforest, in the woods, in the snow, in the rain, or here in the middle of fall, I enjoy these. It is a privilege to be able to continue to create videos for you, and that's what I will do for the rest of my life, and the rest of my time. Remember something, if where you are is where you want to be, stay there. If where you are is not where you want to be, there's work to be done. And before I close this video, and I know times are tough right now, but remember something. If you want a one-on-one hourly coaching session with me, drop an email at narcdailyvideos@gmail.com. That's narcdailyvideos@gmail.com. The link is in the description of this video. Pay it forward, and pay it forward when you have your cup full. I love you all. God bless you. And remember, you replaced the narcissist. And when the narcissist gets replaced, what happens always happens to these toxic creatures. They always end up in the low vibrational quagmire state with their mind spinning, no one communicating with them, and they only deteriorate. You are elevating and ascending. So don't think for a minute that the narcissist replaced you. The narcissist gets replaced by you. I love you all, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye, everybody. Bye.